بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome everybody to the Sufi Society Nothing But Facts live stream, streaming straight from New Brunswick, New Jersey, just a mile down from the Bob Wood University Medical Center, also known as Robert Wood Johnson, the Johnson & Johnson family. They basically own half of New Brunswick probably. The founders of the Band-Aid, founders of the first aid kit. Okay, that's why whenever New Jersey comes about, we see the light bulb and we see the Band-Aid. That's famous inventions made out of New Jersey. All right, let's go straight. Are we ready?
Yeah. It seems like we think this is I mean, maybe on YouTube.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Today we're going to talk about a claim that was made that Ahl Sunnah, Ash'aris, Hanafis are always attacked with this. They reject al-Hadith al-Ahad. And there are certain things that people say all the time that is not possible to be true. Such as the saying, if the Hadith is sound, then it's my madhab. And they say, all the Imams said it. If that's the case, then why do we have madhabs then, right? We'd all be Shafi'iyah. As you're going to see why I'm saying that now. Everyone will be Shafi'i at that point, pretty much. So today we're going to talk about a type of sound hadith. Keep in mind, we are talking about sound hadith here. We're not talking about weak hadith, fabricated hadith. When we say hadith today, we're only talking about sound hadith. All right, are we on? All right, good. And the slide is there? Good, very good. So I can see. All right, first slide. We talk about three types of transmission. The mutawatir transmission is that which reaches us through such a large number that based on it's like built in. Self-evidently, you know that this can't be a lie and it must be true. Okay? They say, what is the proof of the mutawatir hadith? What is the proof that and by the way, this is outside of hadith too. Mass transmission yields absolute certainty. That this is a fact. Okay. And we don't have a specific number. So in Maraqi Saud, the author, there's an usul book, he discusses this. And he says a very wise thing. And he says that you know for sure that bread and water can fill you up, right? Food and water in general can fill you up, quench your thirst and satisfy your hunger. But how many bites? We don't really know. Nobody can really tell. And for you, maybe more than me, depending on the situation. So we don't know exactly, there's no set number. As Al-Ghazali puts it, there's no set number on how many people are necessary in a transmission. It's just so much that at that point, just based on common sense, you know that this cannot be a lie. Keep in mind, however, that this must be an observed phenomenon, not a rational conclusion. Okay, so scientifically, there are observed phenomenon and there are the rational conclusions based on those observed phenomenon, and rational conclusions can be mass transmitted in error. So the role of mass transmissions in them is that the conclusion exists, right? That doesn't mean the conclusion's correct. So all over science, in the history, all of the history of science you study in high school, it's that, the sun revolves around the earth. I mean, how many millennia people held that position? That's a rational conclusion based on an observation, right? What you observe is the sun rising, like the sun moving like that. That's what you observe. So that we all know. There's no discussion on that. Now to conclude that you're still, and it's the sun moving, that's a jump. That's a leap. So that can be wrong, right? There can be mass transmission that's incorrect regarding rational conclusions and beliefs. But mass transmission regarding observable things, right, yields fact, absolute fact. Okay? So we're not a people who only merely rely on either reason or experimentation, demonstration. No, we can have, we do accept that that there is a concept of transmitted fact. So that's number one. I'm going to go to the bottom one first now. The opposite of that is the ahad. Okay. It's the opposite of the ahad. Right? And it's transmitted by a handful of people that doesn't reach to that point. Any kind of transmission that does not yield certainty, we call that ahad. So in a sense, it's a misnomer because we're not limiting it to one person. Ghazali here, his quote here says that which has not reached the level of mass transmission which yields certainty, even if it was transmitted by many people from 5 or 6 original transmitters. Okay. So he's even saying that 5 or 6 transmitter doesn't yield mass transmission. Okay. Examples of mass transmission are obvious. For in the news, there's some news that you get a report, you doubt it, no matter who says it. But then you get a report, and it's literally the same report. There are eyewitnesses, a journalist, every journalist is in front of the fire, let's say, for example. You don't doubt that there's a fire, right? But if one journalist came down and said there's a massive fire in Antarctica, I don't have any pictures, but I saw it myself, what does that yield to us? It doesn't yield anything, even if it was Ted Koppel himself. Right, who was Peter Jennings himself. These are like famously objective journalists, right? Ted Koppel, Peter Jennings back in the old days. Okay, it doesn't yield absolute certainty. What's an example in the Quran? Example in the Quran where somebody does not reject nor accept an ahad report. There's an example in the Quran where an ahad report is received and it is not accepted nor is it rejected. Rather, what's said about it is that we have to find qara'in, extra evidences. Prophet Sulaiman and the hudhud. In this instance, Allah is telling us about the hudhud, which is the hoopoe bird. Okay, the hoopoe, at this point, yes, it's an animal, but because Allah is transmitting this to us, leave aside the concept that it's merely a bird. Okay, it's essentially a rational and trustworthy being in this verse. The hudhud says, "Ji'tuka min saba'in binaba'in yaqeen." I've come to you with news from the Queen of Sheba, from the kingdom of Sheba, which is in Yemen. They were East Africans that had colonized Yemen, and they had a queen with certain news, absolute certain news. So here, he's the witness, so it's certain for him. For the hudhud, for the bird, this is absolute knowledge. Okay, what does Sulaiman says? قال سننظر أصدقت أم كنت من الكاذبين. He says, we're going to check. Right? We're going to check. So the ahad report is met with what? Neither acceptance nor rejection, but we will check if there is what the evidence around it is. Okay, so that's an example of the ahad report in the Quran. All right. We're going to come to the ruling and the acceptance of it in a second. The next one is in the middle, and this is differed upon. Wahb al-Zuhayli, he accepts it and holds it to be an acceptable category. And that's the category that a hadith begins with the companions as ahad, but in the second and third generation that was so cautious about hadith, pious, and they were very close to the era of the companions, in that generation, it became mutawatir. So he said, we can't just ignore this category. We have to have this middle category called al-mashhur wal-mustafid. Mashhur wal-mustafid when? With the tabi'een. It became widespread amongst the tabi'een. Not way later where it's easy for lies to be misconstrued. Like amongst us, we always have a hadith that are weak or fabricated, but they spread amongst people through misunderstandings, right? It's a complete misunderstanding. For example, the Prophet ﷺ said, seek knowledge even unto China. That was actually the comment of the transmitter. He just made a comment after narrating a hadith on seeking knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. The transmitter of the hadith then said to the students from himself, seek knowledge even unto China. And then a narrator, a student wrote that as if it's the hadith, and it became transmitted as if that hadith. And now you see people saying it all the time. If that was the case, it would be sunnah to go to China, seek hadith, right? It would be sunnah to do that. But no, we never seen another ulama do that. There are practices that spread so far and wide where you barely can find any evidence for it, even in the books of fiqh, like moving to pray the sunnah. Like you pray the fard and then everyone moves. Show me. I've asked so many people for any evidence in none of the madhabs. They just say in general, it's good to separate between fard and sunnah. That's it. But there's no concept of let's all shift. Sometimes people look at you and you're like, what? And he's waiting for you to move, right? Not saying it's wrong, but it's one of those things that spread later on. So the mashhur has the condition that it became mass transmitted in the first generation. After the companions. The tabi'een. After the companions. One example. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. Actions are by intentions. Okay. Although the Prophet said it on the mimbar, he said it in front of everybody, it was only transmitted by Umar ibn Khattab. Or that transmission is the only one that reached us, I should say. All right, let's go to the rulings on this. We're keeping this very simple. Are ahad hadith a source of aqeedah and law for us? And the answer is yes, there's no doubt about that. Ahad hadith are a source of aqeedah and law. But some have provided conditions. What are some of these conditions? The Ahnaf have the most conditions. Number one, that it doesn't contradict the action of the narrator. Because if a narrator narrates something but he does something else, then maybe what he's not telling you are the conditions. Maybe he's not telling you it was an exception. Maybe he's not telling you that it was abrogated. So if the narrator, and where am I'm getting this from Wahb al-Zuhayli, Syrian scholar, he was like the Sheikh Sa'id Ramadan al-Bulti of writing. Sheikh Sa'id al-Bulti has books, but he's even famous for his lectures too, right? But Sheikh Wahb al-Zuhayli, he was an amazing writer. Secondly, in the Hanafi school, and this is even in Ahnaf, they have a discussion on it, is that it doesn't oppose Qiyas. The Ahad and the Qiyas, right? That the Ahad does not oppose a Qiyas. Okay. And this is mansub to Abu Hanifa. But others have said, no, it's not from Abu Hanifa. وأثبت أن نسبة هذه الكلمة للإمام أبي حنيفة خطأ محض وأن الإمام ما كان يرد حديث النبي لتفكير عقلي. So you have to keep in mind, some have said this, but Sheikh Wahb al-Zuhayli is telling us here that it is narrated that this is not the case. Omar, you can double check for us. Okay, Omar is a Hanafi student here. Okay. What's the third condition? ألا يكون حديث الواحد مما تعم به البلوى إذ حاجة الناس إليه وانتشاره لا تجعله محصورا في آحاد الناس. So it should not be a matter that is a very public matter, because if that was the case, everyone needs this hadith. So why is it mass? Why is it only one person transmitting this? It's a matter that affects everyone's life. So it should be mass transmitted. Okay. لا تجعل محصورا في أحد وهذا الرأي هو المعتمد عند الأحناف ومروي عن ابن خويز من داد وأبي عبد الله البصري وابن سريج. Alright. وهذا الشرط وإن كانت معظم كتب الأصول لم تنسبه للإمام أبي حنيفة وإنما نقله عن أبي الحسن الكرخي من المتقدمين. Okay. And there's just some discussion on that. So those are the three conditions for the acceptance of the Ahad hadith with Abu Hanifa. Should I repeat them? Let's take out the second one that's differed upon. Let's just keep it at two. In the Hanafi school, Ahad hadith is accepted, according to this by Wahb al-Zuhayli, on two conditions. The first condition, it doesn't contradict the action of the narrator. The second condition, it doesn't regard a subject matter that affects the entire public, something that the entire public, the entire society deals with every day. Because if that was the case and it was law, we'd know it from everybody. Right? Now these two conditions are very, very, very similar. You see the minds, they think alike. To the Maliki opinion. What's the Maliki opinion on this? Ahad hadith is fully accepted on one condition, that it does not contradict amal ahl Madina. It's the same idea, right? Very similar idea. Because if all the scholars of Medina, and these are the kids and grandkids of the Sahaba, are ruling with one thing, doing one thing, then that's what the Sunnah is. That's mutawatir. Okay, so the one condition, two conditions for the Ahnaf, one conditions for the Malikis. How about the Shafi'iyya? لم يشترط الشافعية للعمل بخبر الواحد إلا صحة السند والاتصال. No conditions. Yes, it is law, absolutely, as long as it's sahih. All right. ومن هنا لم يعملوا بالحديث المرسل إلا إذا توافرت فيه عدة شروط. So that's about الحديث المرسل. So they don't consider the mursal. What is mursal? Mursal means a second generation Muslim quotes the Prophet. He doesn't cite a Sahabi. That's a whole nother discussion. Set that aside. So what do the Shafi'iyya have? On the sound ahad hadith, 0 conditions. So we went from 2 to 1 to 0. Okay, what about the Hanabila? من أصول الإمام أحمد أنه لا يقدم على الحديث شيئا سواء كان قياسا أم غيره فهو يقدم خبر الواحد على القياس وقول الصحابي وغيرهما من الأحاديث. Same as Shafi'i. So we went that the ahad hadith is accepted in all 4 madhabs with conditions. Hanafis had two conditions, which was it doesn't contradict, the narrator does not act differently from what he narrated, and that it's not from the public matters. Because if it was a public matter, we'd have so many narrations from it. It would be a mass transmission. Okay? Next, Maliki madhab, one condition. We act upon it on one condition. Doesn't contradict the action of the scholars of Medina. It's pretty much very similar to what Abu Hanifa said, but it's talking about Medina. The scholars of Medina. Of what? The scholars of today? No. The scholars of last century? No. The scholars of the first 2 generations. The Tabi'een and the Tabi'een. First 2 after the Sahaba. Shafi'is and Hanbalis act upon it fully. Beautiful summary here from Shaykh Wahba al-Zuhaili. Okay. Now let's talk about it regarding can it provide exceptions to mass transmitted reports? And we just basically answered that. The Shafi'is and Hanbalis accept it as law, absolutely, and it can offer exceptions to the Quran. However, the Malikis and Hanafis will not give it exception to the Quran. Will not, if amal ahl al-Madina is a filter, the Quran is definitely a filter. And Malik's food laws are all based on this principle. The food laws of the Maliki school are based on this principle. All right. There's a spelling error here. Is takfir made? Now we go to the aqidah element of things. Is takfir made on one who rejects an ahad report? The answer is no, according to the Ash'aris and the Maturidis. Rather, such a rejection may entail tabdi'a, that this person is an innovator. You are now a layer between a Muslim and a kafir is the layer of the heretic, the innovator. And here you start to see that the mashhur category is very important because the authors say may entail. It may entail. So then where is that division? That division, I'm sure it's mentioned in some of the books and they give examples. All right. So if a report comes on a matter of belief now, that is ahad, and a person rejects it, then it may result in them being an innovator, not a kafir. Okay. Let's go now to a little diagram. Next slide, Omar. Okay. Look at this little diagram. At the top is mass transmission. At the bottom is solitary transmission. On the right, now we're introducing another section here, factor here. The nature of the speech. Are the words definitive or indefinitive? Okay, I should have flipped it, to be honest with you. I should have put dhanni on the left and qati on the right, but my mind was thinking like in Arabic, right to left, right? So on the right, you have the indefinitive speech. there is in Islam the concept of indefinitive language, right? It's not definitive. I ate bread today. What of that is definitive? That I ate something of the genus of bread. But what kind of bread? Pita bread? French bread? Afghani bread? So that's what we call dhanni ad-dalala. It is speculative in its meaning. It could يحتمل المعاني. It could have different meanings, many different meanings. We call that dhanni ad-dalala. And then on the other side you have qat'i ad-dalala. Absolutely. I ate French bread today. Now that there's no discussion on what kind of bread I ate. Right? Or when I said I ate bread, there's no discussion that I ate bread as opposed to something else. I only ate bread. That means I didn't eat apples, for sure, guaranteed. But we don't know what kind of bread, right? So that is the idea of being definitive in implication. All right? So now we're going to have transmissions from the Quran and from the Hadith that fit in all four. Of course, the Quran, let me just make a point. The Quran and the mutawatir Hadith will only be above the line, above the x-axis, right? Because the Quran is mass transmitted. Every letter of it, every order of the surahs, everything is mass transmitted. The mutawatir Hadith, obviously by the meaning, is mass transmitted. But there could be from the Quran and Hadith that which is dhanni dalala. So what's guaranteed is the Quran and the mass transmitted will be above the x-axis. All mutawatir. But it could be on the right or the left of the axis. All right. Let's go to the first example. Click. Give us a click, Omar.
I think someone's spamming the chat, but I wasn't looking at chat.
Oh, okay. Spamming with what? All right. An example of that which is mutawatir and definitive. Absolutely definitive and mutawatir. There's no discussion on this at all. Establish the salah. Pay the zakah. Fasting has been made obligatory. Right? There's absolutely no discussion on these things. Right? It's qat'i that there is something called salah that's obligatory upon us. It's qat'i that there's something called zakah that's obligatory. It's qat'i that there's something called fasting that is obligatory upon us. All right, let's take a look at an example of that which is in mass transmission. It's qat'i in its thubut. It's absolutely certain that this is transmitted. But the meaning can have different, the wording can have different meanings. يحتمل المعاني. All right, next. Okay.
Looks like we had a bot attack on the chat.
A bot attack?
But I couldn't see the chat because the slides are covering it. So thanks for whoever.
Is it a bot or is it a human?
I was like people. I mean,
Dr. Shadee Mashi, is it a jet? Wow.
They're bots. They're human bots. Human bots.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, here we go. This wave, this type of wave attacking all madhahib, anyone with tasawwuf, any ash'ari, bring it. Okay, we have no fear of it. Bring it on. It's going to subside. We've seen this before. I'm telling you, we've seen this before. We've all seen it before. Okay. All right, now let's go to the next thing. These, what I'm about to tell you here, are mutawatir in their transmissions from the Quran. Okay? And there could be mutawatir hadith. But the meaning of it can have different meanings. Can have implications. So number one, the divorced woman awaits 3 quru'. وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ 3 quru'. What is the qur'? Is it the period of purity or is it the period of menstruation? Three purities or 3 menstruations? اختلاف. They differed upon that. وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. I couldn't even translate it. So I wrote wipe your heads, right? Wipe with your heads. All right. How much? Firstly, what if I have hair there? Right? الرأس. He said, Allah says the head. He didn't say the hair. So am I allowed to go over the hair? Right? That's in Maraq al-Saud. That's an example of majaz, actually. It's one of the examples of majaz in the Quran. Is that where you don't go by the meaning, you have to go by another meaning, right? And also we have the example of the Prophet in that. So, امسحوا برؤوسكم, or the whole head, part of the head. Shafi'iyah say 3 hairs, right? Ahnaf say 1/4 of the head, 1/4 of the head. So الربع حكم الكل, amazing. So they can say, for example, so if I withhold, if I give you 1/4 of your salary, I'm good. I'm just kidding. If a boss gives someone 1/4 of the salary, I'm just kidding. But so a person could technically make wudu if his hair is done nicely just on the back, wipe just the back, right? Because that's 1/4 of the head.
I mean, if you do a 1/4, yeah.
No, just the back and the sides. But what's the fard? 1/4. So there's ikhtilaf on what the head is, how much of the head. What does that mean? وَامْسَحُوا بِرُؤُوسِكُمْ. So the verse is mutawatir. There's no discussion. It's a verse of Quran. But the meaning, يحتمل المعاني. It can have different meanings. So that's why we have schools of thought. قُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. Stand for Allah with qunut. Does that mean sincere prayer? Or does it mean say qunut, recite qunut, dua al-qunut? احتمل. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. Those who avoid from laghu, they are in avoidance. What is laghu? Okay. At what point is talking about the NBA playoffs laghu? Right? 2 sentences, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. At what point is talking about these things laghu? Right? And is laghu include instrumentation? Like at what point is it laghu? Here's another one. Whoever is traveling makes up the days. Those who are traveling make up days in fasting. Well, what's traveling? How many miles is traveling? How far of a distance is traveling? And we have that khilaf across all the schools. And you have from 36 miles to 72 miles, English miles. So there's a lot of khilaf on that. But the text, the transmission is guaranteed, right? We know that this is a guaranteed transmission, but there's discussion on the meaning of it, okay? Why did Allah put that? Why not just give everything clear? For wisdom, that Allah knows, okay? The wisdom of having different opinions on matters. All right, let's go to the third one, Omar. Now we have a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, we have hadiths from the Prophet, peace be upon him, that are not mutawatir. They're below the x-axis. They are not mass transmitted. And they're on top of that speculative in their meaning. Meaning, يحتمل المعاني, can have different meanings. All right, they're indefinitive in their implication. Okay. البيعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرقا. The buyer and the seller are at choice as long as they have not separated. That means, for example, I will sell you this item for $10. All right, fine, take it for $10. He puts $10 on the table. I put it in my pocket. He takes the pencil. He puts it in his pocket. And we're still chilling. All right, let's have some tea. In the middle of the tea, he says, hey, you know what? I changed my mind. Give me the $10 back and give me my, take the pen. So why is it that Malik did not rule by this? He says, while he transmits it, and it's even in he transmits it himself, and he used to teach it to show people that he knows it, but his ruling is not that. That's not the ruling. There is a no return policy as a default in Islam. When you buy and sell, the default is no return policy. Unless there is now, it's a custom amongst people, or it's in the receipt that you can return it for 50 days or something like that, right? But the default is that there's no return policy. So that sale, according to the way that the scholars of Medina at that time used to interact, is final, whether we get up or not. So Malik didn't rule by this hadith because it contradicted the amal. It opposed the amal. So what does he say? Maybe it's abrogated. Maybe the author, he's a human being, he could have made a mistake. Maybe the transmitter, maybe there was other conditions there. Okay. Let's take another one. In the Shafi'i school, the neighbor has the first right of refusal. That's not the narration that's accepted. That's not the ruling they rule by. Okay. What is the first right of refusal? Ash-shuf'a lil-jar. Hadith al-shuf'a lil-jar. a shuf'a is when I'm buying something, there are times where I have to inform somebody and that person gets the first right to buy it or to refuse to buy it. Like what? If I own 50% of a business, I cannot turn around and sell it to anybody I want to. I can only sell it to somebody who, after asking my partner, do you want to buy it first? Because now I put him in a bad situation that he has to have a business with someone he doesn't like. So this one, the narration that the Shafi'is use is a narration that the neighbor has the first right of refusal if they have a ishtirak, if they have some kind of partnership regarding the land. Okay. So that's another example of an ahad hadith that's not utilized. Next one, the Prophet ﷺ forbade eating birds with talons. All right. Talons being claws. Claws is not the right word. Right? Talons is the right word. Why? Because in Medina, they used to eat them. Birds with talons. Okay. But also, and honestly, these are not even the best examples because the words are clear here. Right? The words actually are clear here. These are examples of ahad hadith that are outweighed by mutawatir hadith. And the amal of Ahl Medina is mutawatir. Okay? The tabi'een, the tabi'at, they all bought and sold. They all ate bird. They ate fowl. Right? They all sold property. Did they do any of this? No, they didn't do any of this. Okay? So, but these are good examples in terms of ahad hadith, which are outweighed by the mutawatir. They're not exactly good examples of ahad hadith that are speculative in their language. Okay, that have indefinite language. All right, what is an example of that can be put in this category? Most signs of the end of time. Most signs of the end of time, okay, that you could put them in this bottom right corner because the language is not definitive. Okay.
I don't know if this would work, but
yeah,
I forget the wording of the Prophet ﷺ in the Hadith. Versus, I think it's tawadda. He says, so like when you touch your organ, your private organ, tawadda. Yeah. So this can be interpreted different ways. So the Shafi'is, they would say, well, this means wudu in the sense of like
washing,
the Shadee sense, like you do wudu.
Shadee sense, yep.
And then the Hanafis would say no, it means wudu in the sense like you wash your hands because it's established that like this doesn't make sense. Like why would this one hadith come and have this whole entire ruling when we have all these proofs that like outweigh this, right?
That's even so in the Hanafi school, your mic was on, right? Yeah. You heard what Omar said. That's an example of umum al-balwa, right? Like we all make wudu. Half the population has a male private part and makes wudu in life, right? So wouldn't this become mutawatir, right? That's an example in the Hanafi school. What he said, that if your male touches his private part with his hand, there is it's even from the Sahabi. It's from Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, I believe. His son or grandson came in with the Quran, put his hand under his thobe, touched his private part, right? And he says, it's in Muwatta, studied this in England. لَعَلَّكَ مَسَسْتَ ذَكَرَكَ قال نعم قال قم فتوضأ. Perhaps you touch your private part. He said yes. He said get up and make wudu. In the Hanafi school, hold on a second, how could that one hadith affect wudu? We all make wudu all the time and we're all men, so wouldn't this become widespread? Right, so the Hanafis don't use that.
We interpret it actually. So
how do you interpret it?
Tawadda doesn't mean wudu, and like I said, the Shar'i sense of like you do wudu with
means
your hands.
Wudu as wash your hands.
And you do tawadda means you wash your hands because you touch your private organ.
So it's a hygienic narration.
Yeah, like go wash your hands. The Prophet he's not saying to do wudu with your hands and face and everything.
So the Malikis now, this is a great example because the Malikis have a different filter, which is amal Ahl Madina, and they do hold that the amal was upon that. So we do hold that. Yeah. If your male touches his private part with the inside or the side of his hand, in other words, the light colored skin part of the hand, you have to make wudu. All right, now let's go to the third part. Here, something that is not mass transmitted, but it's qat'i in its implication. Namely, that there is punishment in the grave. Did not the Prophet ﷺ come upon two people and he said they're being tortured right now in their graves? Yeah, sorry, he came upon two graves, right? He came upon two graves, and he said they're being punished right now on something that is not big, but it's big. meaning they thought it's not a big in daily life, but with Allah it's big, right? Which was one, he always gossips, and the gossip is not always backbiting, by the way. Gossip is always just talking about people's affairs. That's not your business, and it could lead to a lot of misunderstandings. Okay, and it's not lying either, and it's not only saying what people don't like. Okay, the gossiper. And the second one is the one who was not careful of cleaning the urine from after going to the bathroom. Okay, so punishment of the grave is established on that hadith, and it's an ahad, right? That's why the Mu'tazila, what's the difference between us and the Mu'tazila? They don't accept these ahad narrations at all. At all. That's the Mu'tazili view. Okay? So that's one of the big differentiators between us and the Mu'tazila. We believe in punishment of the grave because we do accept ahad hadith. Okay? And, so it's all in the furu' of Aqidah. Aqidah has usul and furu'. That which is mutawatir forms the furu'. Usul. That which is ahad forms the furu'. So the existence of munkar and nakir asking you questions in the grave, right? So for sure there are two angels called munkar and nakir. Is that the name of the angel, or is that the category of the angel? People are dying all the time. How is munkar and nakir just two angels questioning all the humans? We're not going to answer that. We don't know. Could be the category. It could be actual two angels. One, his name is Munkar, one's name Nakir. It could be that they are the chiefs of them and they do the questioning, and there are others who do the questioning too. Ultimately, so that part we don't know. But the existence of two angels that will ask you questions in the grave is established. Imam Malik, for example. All right, roll up, Omar. You need to roll up real quick. Scroll up. Yeah. There you go. All right. The existence, Imam al-Mahdi, there is for sure someone named Imam al-Mahdi, right? Why? Because it's come in sound, clear narrations, but those narrations are not mutawatir. That's why the rejection of the return of Jesus is kufr. The rejection of Imam al-Mahdi is bid'ah. All right. Baria, thank you for the comment there. Yeah. All right, so that's it. That's a quick. Are there any questions? Let's stop before we bring Shaykh Mahdi on. Let's stop really quickly for any comments or questions, and bring Shaykh Mahdi if he's on too. As soon as he logs in, bring him on, inshallah. I'd like to hear what he has to say too about this. Hamza Hussein from Chicago. He's sick. Allah give you shifa. Hamza Hussein, of course, an old school attendee of the basically everything. Any questions on these subject on ahad hadith? How do you debunk Shia claims using hadiths? The claimant needs to provide the proof, right? So the way you want to look at it is that the claimant needs to provide these proofs. That's the best way to look at it. Okay. The return of Jesus, is it mutawatir? Yes, the return of Jesus is firmly established as a mutawatir because of verse. It's not explicit in the Quran, but it's implied in the Quran, as Allah is saying, وَيُكَلِّمُ النَّاسَ فِي الْمَهْدِ وَكَهْلًا. All right, as well as Allah is saying, وَإِن مِّن أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ. There's none from the people of the book except that will believe in him before his death. وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ لَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. Right? So on one hand, Allah says they didn't kill him and they didn't crucify him. And on the other hand, he will die. Right? Before his death. So that means he still has to live. That means he has to return. On top of that, all of the ahadith that come about this. There's a question here on, did Al-Imam Al-Razi hold opinions that he doesn't act upon, we don't take from the Ahad Hadith? And the answer, and for that reason people said he's deviant. My research on that led me to some scholarly discussion saying that this is simply not true, right? Yet I don't have the quotes in front of me for why they said that and what quote they're saying, so I can't answer that right now, right? Except that the scholars that I saw speaking on this said this is simply not true, and there are other quotes in his books where he utilizes the Ahad Hadith. Perhaps what solely was meant was that absolute knowledge cannot be gained from the Ahad Hadith, and takfir cannot be made for someone who rejects such an Ahad Hadith, and as a result of that, but I can't give a firm comment. That's just an ijmali comment that I heard that this is not true about Al-Fakhr al-Razi. Okay. All right, let's bring on Shaykh Mahdi. Shaykh Mahdi leads our Arabic program, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to study Arabic, really the best person to study Arabic is somebody who learned Arabic from scratch. Shaykh Mahdi, of course, being somebody who is a citizen of the world, part Russian, lived in England, part Canadian, lived in the United States for a while, now lives in Bradford, England. He is a citizen of the world in terms of his nasab and in terms of his ma'isha, where he actually lives. So, mashallah, Shaykh Mahdi, welcome to the Nothing But Facts live stream.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. Thank you for the introduction, mashallah, for the welcome.
Did you hear hear what we just talked about regarding the Ahad Hadith?
Yes, a bit here and there. I was
okay. Do you have any comments for us on Shaykh Al-Razi, Al-Fakhr Al-Razi, and the Ahad Hadith? Do you have knowledge on what is said about him and what he said exactly?
I don't know. I don't know about the statement. I just shared something with Brother Omar from Imam Bulti's book
on the Ahad.
Yeah, which is it's on my blog and it's part of the book. It's from the introduction.
Very good.
It's called The Scientific Method of Researching Truth.
MashaAllah.
And there, Imam Bulti just explains that Ahad Hadith are not, because they're not mutawatir. We only take mutawatir hadith in terms of what you must believe and what is obligatory to believe. And as for what is an ahad hadith, that's down to your own personal conviction. You cannot tell someone they must believe what is based on an ahad hadith. So we take them into our theology, but it's not like you have to believe. That's the point.
Yeah, that's the difference. And it's also, there are things that people believe in that they're allowed to believe in that they're not holding to be religious statements. Okay, they're not held to be religious statements, such as the specific karamat of awliya.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to believe in karamat in general. That's an obligation. The existence of miracles at the hands of non-prophets that come without the claim of prophethood. A karama is defined as a miracle void of the claim of prophethood. That's the only difference between the karama and the mu'jiza, is that there is no claim of prophethood there. So the specific karama of a wali, even a sahabi. Let's say somebody says, you know what, I don't believe that Umar ibn Khattab said, Ya Sariyat al-Jabal. So for the people who don't know that story, Umar ibn Khattab was given the Jummah khutbah. Sariya was a general, his general in Persia. There was a mountain, and the enemy had gone very low and was climbing the mountain and could not be seen by the Muslims on the other side. If they had reached there, they would have come down. The Muslims were unprepared. They would have killed so many Muslims. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed Umar ibn Khattab a vision of that while he's giving the khutbah. And he said, Ya Sariyata al-Jabal. And Sariya heard the voice of Umar in Persia, ran up, saw the enemy, prepared the Muslims, saved hundreds upon thousands of lives. That's a karama that's transmitted from Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. He was on the minbar. If someone, so I'm assuming that that's an ahad transmission, right? I'm assuming that. Accept that assumption. If someone were to say, nah, you know what, I don't believe that. Are we going to say he's a kafir, your marriage is null and void, and prayer behind you is sinful? No, we're not going to say that. Okay. So, all right, tell us about your trip to Morocco.
Okay. Alhamdulillah, it was very quick. Very quick, but very, very fruitful, mashallah. I had not been there for quite a while since living there. So over 10 years.
Yeah.
But alhamdulillah, I received an invitation via my teacher, Ustad Ali al-Filali, who, as I mentioned before, he's a student of Shaykh Mahdi. And we studied together for 4 years while I was out in Morocco when I was living in Fez the first time. And mashallah, he's introduced me to different organizations and associations over there. So I'm actually a member of 2 Moroccan associations, one for the preservation of the Quran, and another one for service to the Arabic language. So he's hooked me up, so to speak. So I'm signed up for those. And they had a part in arranging this conference in Tétouan, which you got here. There's the brochure, if you can see it.
MashaAllah.
So the second international conference, and it's about Kitab al-Ta'lim al-Khas bi Tadris al-Lughat al-Arabiyya li ghayri natiqin biha. So it's about textbooks for teaching Arabic to non-native speakers. It's their second conference. So this was an association with the main teachers college in Tétouan, and a few other like intellectual and scholarly organizations. ISESCO is one of them as well. That's an organization I hadn't actually heard of. It's actually linked to the IOC, or the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Conference in Jeddah. So this is like an Islamic cultural intellectual organization headed out of Rabat. So they had a hand in it too. And I was very pleasantly surprised by what I saw. I mean, because I've been to academic conferences before. I've attended TEFL conferences, and I've attended some. I once went to a conference a long time ago in Fez. I gave a short talk about the Sira at a conference in Fez way back in 2008. And as people know about universities, you know, like they can be university conferences. They can be boring. You know, everyone's told to speak for 15 minutes, and some people end up reading out their papers for 45. Yep. Just reading off the paper like that. It's worse than death by PowerPoint. But alhamdulillah, what I found was I met people who different backgrounds. Mashallah. So I was there. I'll talk about the rest of my trip afterwards. But I was there basically from the Tuesday to the Thursday of last week, from the 7th to the 9th. We drove from Tétouan to Fez and back. I hired a driver. I'll talk about that afterwards. That was quite something else. But the conference, mashallah, it was mostly Moroccans, but based in Morocco and outside Morocco. So there are people who are teaching in Belgium and Spain and France and Germany, Turkey. And they, alhamdulillah, mashallah, they were just very passionate people about what they do. That's what I love to see. They're really passionate about what they do. And they stressed that when we're teaching Arabic to non-native speakers, a lot of people we're teaching are not Muslim, right? Because they said, you know, when you're thinking about the audience of who you teach, you might be teaching Muslims who have some familiarity with Arabic, right? You might be teaching Muslims who have no familiarity with Arabic, right? Which is what we get with ArcView, right? We get a mixture of that. We have Arabs who are the descendants of Arabs, and they live in the United States or Canada, other places. And then you get people who are not Muslim and not from an Arabic background at all, right? So they talked about these differences, and they said that when you're teaching the people who are not even Muslim and bringing Arabic, he said you understand that you are actually calling people to Islam through Arabic.
Subhanallah.
That's what you're doing. You are calling people to faith through Arabic, and they kept stressing the point that you don't have to be forceful with it. You don't have to be in their face with it. You don't have to be stubborn or rude or anything. Just show them good character, show them the beauty of the language, show how much you love the language, show how special the language is, and they will come.
SubhanAllah.
They will come, right? I mean, there was one one doctor, I mean, they're all very impressive, mashallah. One doctor that I've been speaking to, I'm kept in contact with Dr. Muhammad al-Ismaili al-Alawi, right, which is a big family in Morocco, right? Because the Alawis themselves have branches, and he's from the Ismaili Alawi branch. He told stories about how he'd been teaching Arabic to Americans who come to Morocco for many years, and he said, I've watched the people become Muslim before me, just through teaching of the Arabic, explaining what they mean. I was reading one of his articles yesterday. He told this beautiful story of how he was teaching Arabic to an American lady, like not Muslim, and she was asking, like, why are there so many pronouns in Arabic? It's crazy. Like, why do you have the singular, the dual, the plural, right?
Allah wants to bring the leftists in.
Yeah. Well, that was his response. And it's because she was asking, like, why it's so complicated. You got the singular, dual, the masculine, the feminine, plural, all that kind of stuff. And he just looked. His response was حقوق الإنسان.
Subhanallah, Hajib.
Right. Everyone is acknowledged. Everyone is acknowledged as a separate legal entity. Everyone is recognized, and everyone has his or her or their appropriate pronoun. Right. And she's like, oh,
yep.
Didn't see it that way.
The uncle and the aunt is the number one thing, right? Like, maternal uncle, paternal uncle. These are two total different feelings towards them, right?
Yeah. And because they're different, separate people. We don't have the words in English to express those differences. So that's part of like that's a whole like nazariya that he works on. This Dr. Muhammad Ismail al-Alawi, like he shows how really what the Arabic language does. Arabic is actually just a reflection of creation. It's a reflection of everything that Allah has created. So that's why we have the dual form. Because Allah created everything from min zawjayn.
Yeah,
that's why the dual exists, because Allah is constantly showing that. And then I think, okay, well, then why do Arabic words have roots? Because everything in creation has roots.
Ajib.
Everything goes back to roots. Everything goes back to something, right? Even though the things are, even though when you look at things, like for example, you just take the root ketaba. Like, yes, a mekteb is not the same as a kitab. It's not the same as a maktub. It's not the same as a stiktab, and so on and so forth. All the words are different.
Yep.
But they have a source, right? They come from a singular source.
Yep.
So that was beautiful to see, and I think what I learned as well from the conferences was I learned that from the conference itself. I mean, this doctor and his research, that could be a whole other discussion. But what I learned from the conference itself was they gave a very, very good presentation about the books that were available, right? The books that people use to teach Arabic, whether it's Al-Kitab from Georgetown University Press or Al-Biyatu Bani Yadayk, and a couple other ones they mentioned, and they like collectively they all talked about like what audiences each one stood for. But I learned that a lot of these books do have. I'm just saying this as a teaser. I was given a lot of hope because I learned a lot of books that are out there that other organizations use. They do have major flaws, especially in the field of teaching Arabic. And then at the same time, again, remember these are Moroccans. So these Moroccans, the issue they were raising was, why do they keep pressing and putting forward Egyptian culture or Shadee culture
in the books, right? Yep, that's true.
In the book,
that's
right?
true. Yeah,
it's like Arab culture is Egyptian culture. Arab culture is. It's like this isn't fair. This isn't right. So, But I learned a lot about how those other books work and where they fall, and that's why I have a lot of hope about what we're doing here with ArcView. Number one reason I would give is that inshallah in the summer I will be doing a comparative English Arabic grammar course.
Critical.
And that's what I spoke about in my presentation. So when I spoke, I said that's the major obstacle I'm finding, say from the Anglosphere or the Anglophone world, is that people are not comfortable with English grammar. You're not comfortable with English grammar, then how are you going to tackle Arabic grammar?
That's totally true. That's totally true.
So I gather from that, we put all that together. I thought that was a really hopeful perspective. No one talked about the Tekellim series.
About the what?
The series I use called the Tekellim.
Oh, yeah.
No one spoke about it. Maybe because it's Egyptian. But maybe I could talk about that at a later date. But
yeah.
What I found after the 2-day conference, and at the end of it, the same Dr. Muhammad al-Alawi, he just made a brilliant point, and I think this is this plays into like the philosophy we try to put forward at ArcView as a whole, not just ArcView Arabic, but as a whole. It's just the importance of the teacher, because I mean he just made a beautiful statement at the end, because people were invited up to give like closing statements and remarks, and he said, but let me tell you this just very straight from my experience. He said, give me a weak student, give me a weak textbook, but just give me a good teacher.
Subhanallah.
You give me a good teacher, that weak student will learn something. That weak student will get somewhere.
Yeah. Subhanallah.
Right. And then the flip side, he said, because we have these conferences. He said, you look at the books. He said, like, I know I respect my colleagues here, and some of them have put out excellent textbooks for Arabic, but it's like if you don't have the right teacher,
Subhanallah,
those textbooks aren't going to get very far.
That's totally what I think when it comes to Arabic textbooks. I mean, there's so many different, approaches. Some heavy on exercises, some heavy on theory, right? And then the order of what you study. I remember. Do you remember the Georgetown Arabic books? How they have?
Yeah, that's the one Al Kitab. That's the one Al Kitab.
Al Kitab.
Arabiya. Yeah, that's what it's called.
So that one had a very interesting order. It's almost like sometimes I felt that, are you trying to like dissuade people from studying Arabic by the order of what you're saying? Because they would go straight into like the numbers, right? Which numbers are feminine, which numbers are masculine, right? And the students, like on week 3, they're totally confused, right? So tell us about your Arabic program that you teach. Can somebody join in a rolling fashion, or is it by semester that they can join?
Oh, it's in a rolling fashion. It's in a totally rolling fashion. So because everything is recorded. So because everything is recorded, and then what people pay, they pay the $4 a month. And that's per household. And you jump in wherever you feel fit. So we have a placement test, then we have all the end of level tests, and then once you pay that subscription, you and your house will have access to everything. It's all access. You have access to every single level, all the recordings, all the live sessions, all the handouts, all the extra material.
Very good. Very good.
And then once you jump in, you do your placement test, and you figure out where you need to be, and you take it from there. So if you find yourself, for example, in you fit in 102, you can do the 102 recordings. If you want to try 103, which I'm teaching live, you can jump into that and do both at the same time. We're trying to be here as flexible as possible, and then on top of that, we do have a weekly session where I just have office hours, so to speak. I just I turn on Zoom, I'm there, and if you have any questions, you come in and ask me, like, is there anything in the class you don't understand? Especially if you're doing recordings and there's something that you missed out, you can ask me. And if students don't have any questions, we are working our way through the book 201 Arabic verbs. We're just going over verb conjugation. You can ask, because that's something that people always need. I mean, I think the last session I did, the 2 students came in and we just looked at videos. We just watched videos. We just looked at, how would you translate? So we watched a couple of YouTube videos that have the text written below, the subtitles below in Arabic. Great. So you match the audio with the text and say, okay, now translate for me.
That's great.
That's a new feature, by the way, of YouTube. Just let everyone know, like that YouTube is now
automatically
Arabic subtitles.
Automatically, yeah.
Yeah.
Without the YouTube producer the video maker having to put it.
Yeah, exactly. So they're doing it with all like new videos. So I think if you take it back maybe 6 months now, and you'll get subtitles for videos. So yeah, alhamdulillah, that whole process, it's much like it's there, and it's flexible, and you're free to do what you want to do. And we also have the WhatsApp groups as well. So I'm receiving questions on a regular basis. Well, what does this mean? What does that mean? How do I do with this? I was reading this. Why is this with a dhamma? Where's the tanween? What's going on? So yeah, alhamdulillah, we're creating a community along those lines. That reminds me.
Yeah.
Unless you were going to say it.
No, go ahead. The book club.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That's going to be the first one you read.
Yes.
Great.
This also ties in, because I use this book in my presentation in Morocco, and I showed it to people, and I feel silly because I should have brought more copies with me just to hand out. Like, I should have got Arabic copies as well, because this is called Manhaj Tarbi Farid fil Quran. Let me show the cameras, right? A unique pedagogical approach to the Quran. I know people struggle with that word. pedagogical people.
Pedagogical approaches.
Yeah. So so this I use this because Imam Malik has lots of examples in there about how Allah speaks in the Quran and how it cannot be translated, and this shows the beauty of the language. And this is part of the role. This is one of the things I talked about over there, in the conference. I talked about the importance of when you're teaching the Arabic language, when you use the Quran for the tahbib. Right?
Yeah,
to make people love the Arabic language.
Ajib, subhanallah.
Right? وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُم. Right? This is a Quranic word, tahbib. It's Surah Al-Hujurat. So, the people at the conference, they were interested in this book because some of them were not just one man I met was not just a doctor professor. He's actually a mufattish, like a schools inspector.
Yeah.
He's like, I need to read that too. It's like, yeah, I'll give you a copy. God's address. And everything. So this is the book we're going to be reading about, because what happens in here is what Imam Malik is a summary, is what he shows in this book, and he gives brilliant examples, is he shows how that the way Allah speaks to you in the Quran, Allah doesn't go the simple, raw, intellectual way. He doesn't speak to you in a strictly intellectual, rational way, nor does he speak to you in a purely emotional way, right? Because if someone speaks to you in a purely emotional way, that they're trying to swindle you.
Subhanallah.
Right.
Yep.
That's like advertising or politicians. Right. They just give you some slogan, and you're just saying, "Oh, that feels great."
Yep.
Right? That's not how Allah speaks to you. But at the same time, Allah doesn't speak to you like a vacuum cleaner instruction, right? Or instruction manual. So for example, Imam Malik points out in the book. He says again, if you read Surah Al-Hujurat, on the last page, I think it's ayah 12, where Allah says, وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا, like no one, let none of you backbite another one, right? Now, that's your intellectual, rational statement, right? That's Allah telling you, don't backbite, and it's haram to backbite. But then after that, Allah tugs at your emotions and says, would one of you want to eat the dead flesh of his brother?
Subhanallah.
You'd find that disgusting.
Subhanallah.
Right? So he shows that's how Allah speaks to you throughout the Quran. Like even the ayah, even when you go to the ayah, let me just recall, in Surah Al-Isra, ayah 23, when Allah addresses the talks about being good to your parents, right? And this is an example. I want to make sure I get this right, because it's so subtle. Allah is so subtle. Allah says, بِوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ. Right? So you might read that quickly and think, okay, when they reach old age, but Allah throws in one word, which is like when they grow old with you.
Assumption. Right? So you move them to your house.
Yeah, exactly. They're in your presence. They're not just growing old.
Yeah,
they're with you, right? So it's these subtle phrases. So Allah never speaks us again. He never speaks us in that sort of dry fashion, and he never speaks in a purely emotional fashion. He puts both together, because that's how we are as human beings. We're a combination of emotions and intellect.
Subhanallah.
So we're gonna be talking about, we're actually gonna be reading this book, inshallah, or summarizing it, starting on Sunday, inshallah.
So someone can join ArcView Arabic, and then they could join this book club.
Oh, no, it's actually open. I'll make this
open book club to everybody here. How do people sign up for it? Hey, Omar,
there's a Telegram group. There's a Telegram group, and on the Telegram group, I will post the Zoom link, inshallah. I'll be posting the poster on my social media pages.
Very good. Do you have the link here? We could put it in YouTube right now.
Yeah. Hold on.
Everyone, feel free to join Shaykh Mahdi's book club. And by the way, I know many people, they're converts. They love the teaching of Islam, but have a hard time with the intimidating, reality of another language. Let me tell you this. Ask Allah to make you love it. And don't look at it as an academic endeavor. Take it as an action of love, that I'm going to learn little by little, one word at a time, and the grammar is important, but vocab is even more important. Because once you have a lot of vocab, then you can study grammar. So don't look at it merely as a technical class and it's like burdensome. No, look at it word by word. And I'm telling you, people who fall in love with prayer and dhikr, they read awrad, right? They read certain verses that are prayers. they get good at Arabic just from that. And I've seen so many people who are they're not students. I know for sure that they didn't do good in school. Guaranteed they didn't do good in school. But they've learned Arabic in 2-3 years.
Allahu Akbar.
One guy told me, he said he had, before entering Islam, he had never willfully picked up a book. Right? He said when we had to read Huck Finn, Tom Sawyer, those things in school, he went the route of Cliff's Notes and getting summaries off YouTube. Like he never read a book, I'm telling you. But then when he entered Islam, he was so curious. It was really his heart was driving everything. So ask Allah Ta'ala to make you love the study, love Arabic, and you'll advance it. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that I remember. You remind me now, because like when I first started studying Arabic properly, I think in my second year of university, and again back in Morocco. This is like September, October 2001, and I remember going into the library at the language center and just seeing the books and having enough Arabic to recognize the names. Like, oh, this is Khaldun.
Subhanallah.
Like, I can't read this. I don't know it yet.
Yeah.
So then after that, I remember I made the regular dua, just like, oh Allah, give me the burning desire for this.
Subhanallah.
Because that's what you need. It's not intellectual thing. This again, part of what we cover in this book, and this is something that Imam Malik stresses a lot, is the fact that your intellect is like the headlights on your car.
Yeah.
Right? We covered that before, right? It's not going to move your car.
Yep.
But it's the emotions, it's the love that's going to move you. So when you have that love for the Arabic language, I mean, that's what your emotions are. They're the engine of the petrol. So when you have that love for the Arabic language, it will come, and you just want to learn more and learn more and learn more and learn more.
And I love that concept that learning is about getting somewhere. You need a destination, and learning happens because you're driven personally and emotionally to a destination. And that's how you have so many people who are terrible at school, right? And they're terrible at everything else, but they know a lot about their deen because they love the goal that the deen is providing them, right? Yeah. Whether it be a worldly goal of sakina or just they love their creator. That's it. I mean, the natural fitrah of people is to love their creator, and you love your creator. So how do I keep juicing that and getting more of that? I need to learn how. That's one of the things I hate about school, to be honest with you. School is it's all techniques. It's techniques about things, but no goal. You didn't give us a goal. What's the goal? Yeah. Oh, you better learn this for second grade. Second grade, you learn it for third grade. Then at the end, they say you learn it for your job. But what is the goal? I'll tell you a story about a guy. This guy was a complete failure in school. I think he barely passed high school. Barely. But he loved the stuff that everyone else loves, right? You see this guy today. This guy knows contract law. This guy knows business. This guy knows tax law. Now, how did he get there? Right? This guy knows so much. How did he get there? He loved the stuff that everyone else loves, cars, etc. So he got a job wrapping cars. He loved it so much he would stay after hours. He had like no life, right? Go in the morning. He basically lived at the shop, painting calipers, wrapping Benzes, wrapping BMWs, getting different kinds of wrap, different shades. Some wrap goes from like purple to green if you look at it in the sun. So eventually, after like years of this, he realized, I got a bunch of money in the bank. I could probably do this in my own garage. One thing after another, he now owns multiple garages where they do all sorts of detailing for cars. And he doesn't do it himself anymore. He just gets it, and he's a businessman, essentially. When you're a businessman, you got to learn about taxes. You got to learn about law. You got to learn how to hire employees, how to hire managers, how to do all these things, right? Insurance on these cars, these vehicles. You have a vehicle like that in your garage. Someone falls and scratches it. What's the insurance on these things? Is it in the contract? The guy can give courses now, just from his experience. Point being is that it's really what you said. It's the love of the deen, love of Allah that drives you to learn the language of his book, right? So don't even view it as learning. View it as a journey, right? And the community part, tell us about the community part of the Arabic program.
Yeah. So the community part, this is what it is building up to is we already have the community feel as well. I mean, obviously already in terms of the classes themselves, in terms of the WhatsApp group. But that's the other reason why we're setting up this book club, this monthly study circle, is to have more of a relaxed feel. So I'm not going to be assigning homework or anything like that, or expecting people to answer questions, or expecting people to answer questions. I want people to feel just relaxed, and I'll spend maybe half an hour just explaining over a portion of the book, like what I got out of it as a translator, and insights, and so forth. And then it's open Q&A, just to let people feel free to give their own comments or insights, what they think about the book, or what does a certain thing mean or expression mean. And I think that's the other part of it, because that's I would say the downside of the online world, right? It's very hard to have the community feel, the community setting, because people are not really, because again, I was hit by that at the conference, for example, like just at the conference, because they told me that the first time they did the conference was during COVID, right? Which was, they had to do it online, because of COVID, right? So and that, as you know, any sort of academic conference, the real benefit of it is like the networking, right? Like yes, there's the talks and everything, but it's when you actually go on the break, and then you get a tea and a coffee, and you start talking to people, yakking to people, you start sharing numbers. Hey, what do you do? What do you do? What have you published? What have you written? And so on and so forth. So this is an attempt at that. And I think after that, I think we should really talk about getting. I'm asking for your opinion on this as well, Dr. Shadee. I think it'd be good if we could get sort of actual physical gatherings eventually.
That would be amazing. I wonder what would be the central location. I mean, if there was a place in the middle of the Atlantic, that would be central. But what do you think is the central location?
We've got a wide net. We've got people from the UK. There's people from the US, Canada. There's people from Dubai. There's people from Africa. It's quite wide. But I might maybe have to arrange like a few.
You know, the best thing is we can get a kind of chart, one of those charts with the dots on it, and see who wants to come to the conference, right? And where they are. Because if you have 20 who want to come from the conference that are from England and 5 from the US, you got to do it in England, right? We'll do it in England. If you have, evenly dispersed, then we pick a middle point. So if you have Californians and you have England, then the East Coast, the American East Coast, is the middle point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Why not?
So we got to do that.
It's definitely something that that has been, actually, remind me now. This idea, someone threw this idea my way. Was it a Moroccan or Egyptian? Someone threw this away and said, how come you don't have an association in the Anglosphere, in the English speaking world, that is all about the preservation of Arabic or serving the Arabic language? Like where's our Jamia?
Yep.
That's maybe something we should be thinking about. Like we should have our own like Jamia Gharabiya or something that that deals with Western Association for the Preservation of the Arabic Language, or something in the Anglophone world.
There's a random college in Vermont that focuses on languages, and their summer Arabic program became famous in my day. Right? It's called Middlebury. Their summer intensive was 2 weeks.
There was a guy from Middlebury at the conference.
Oh, really? So I'm not surprised.
Yeah. They have a branch. They have a branch in Morocco.
Wow. This, I think it's a language focused college, but their Arabic program, people used to say, is the best. Right? But we need Muslims to run an Arabic program. I'll tell you what drives me crazy taking those. I did take Arabic classes. All right, lyrics of Kulthum, right? I could care less about this speech from Jamal Abdel Nasser, right? I could totally care less about this stuff, right? You're going there. You want the spirituality of Islam, right? And that's the only reason you're studying the language. Most people are like that. So when they have to give us that modern standard stuff, to me, it's like it's a killer. It's a motivation killer.
Well, we need more. We need more. This is another thing I put out at the conference, and I learned this from one of my professors beforehand. Is with our teaching of Arabic, we need to have. Yes, we need to incorporate the Quran more into this, which is nothing like what we're doing here. But there needs to be more of Hadith. We need to study Hadith more in Arabic, because the point about the Quranic Arabic is that on the one hand, yes, you're learning about how Allah speaks to you and the different layers of meaning Allah gives to you, and the beautiful approaches Allah has, and that brings you closer to Allah, which is why you exist. But you can't imitate that speech, right? Because it's mu'jiza. It's kalam mu'jiz. You can't take that and then implement it in your own life, right? But the sunnah is different. The sunnah is the peak of human speech. The sunnah is the peak of human speach. So I've been doing that as well in my handouts, is bringing in more hadith to show people that, okay, this is speech that's also beautiful, but you can actually emulate this. Yeah, because it's human speech. So that might be for the book club. That might be something we consider next, because I've got another book by Imam Malik, not translated, but I could do it in Arabic. Is it here? Yeah. في الحديث الشريف والبلاغة النبوية. عجيب. Right. So it's about the hadith. So it gives you hadith terminology, and it talks about the balagh of the Prophet ﷺ. So you actually study how the Prophet ﷺ speaks, and then he does in there that book, he does talk about the difference between the Quran and the prophetic speech. And there's a clear difference, even though it is the peak of human speech, and it has its own beauty. You can clearly see the difference. And he said this is why people never got confused between the Quran and the Sunnah. People get confused with whether the Messenger of Allah said something, whether it was Umar ibn Khattab or another. That can happen. Yeah. But between the Quran and any other kind of human speech, no, there was never any confusion.
No difference. And one way that I used to teach Arabic was through Risala al-Qushayriya, stories of the awliya at the end.
Oh, mashallah.
Because everyone wants to read those stories, right? Like one-page story of even like prophetic stories as well. No, it's like one-page incident that was piques curiosity, and people want to know what actually happened.
No, people love stories.
Yeah. To me, it was one of the best ways to study, because everyone wants to know what's going to happen next.
Oh, mashallah. Yeah, you're giving me ideas now, because I've got a couple of biographies in the pipeline that I'm working on. One is Imam Nawawi. That's like halfway done. That's a biography of and then I'm also going to be tackling, inshallah, I've actually got a class tomorrow. I'm tackling Al-Qadi Abu Bakr ibn al-Arabi.
MashaAllah.
Because he's in his book Qanun al-Ta'wil, he has his own it's his autobiography, actually.
MashaAllah.
And he talks about his story, where he studied and where and how he studied knowledge.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, so these are things we're all putting ideas together, and that's what's so fun about the journey, is that you just get new ideas coming your way, and you think, yeah, this could be a translated book, or this could be a book that I put into Arabic and English for the benefit of my students. That's one of the things I'm doing now. Like right now, I've got a book in front of me. That's what I was working on before we started. This is a book called Adab al-Hiwar fi al-Quran. The Etiquettes of Dialogue in the Quran by Imam Malik. And it's a very, very short book. It's a very, very short book. It's only like 28 pages, but I'm putting it together in Arabic and English. It's like a start, just to see how people can see the text side by side. And
the book club book, where can people buy it? We need a link. People are asking for it.
Okay, so it's on nawabooks.com.
Nawabooks.com. Okay.
But that's from Singapore. But if you go to the link, I'll get the link. I'll send the link across to you now. Should I send it to you or to Omar?
Send it to Omar, and Omar will post it up.
Yeah. If you click on that Nawa Books link, you scroll down, you'll see all the Amazon links. Right?
Okay,
so Amazon
good.
US, Amazon UK, wherever you are in the world, you'll find your Amazon link.
You can get it from Europe or America.
Yeah.
Very good.
Or anywhere where they do the Amazon delivery. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have a slideshow, Omar? Did you run the slideshow already?
Yeah, so I played the pictures that Shaykh Mahdi sent as you guys were talking. So unless you want me to replay them, and you can.
Oh, if you played them already, that's good.
More about Morocco. Yeah, we should talk more about Morocco.
Morocco's a beautiful country. It's safe. It's a place, and it's pretty much far away from fitan. It's far away from all that stuff. It's a great culture.
Yeah, I was living there when the Arab Spring kicked off back in early 2011. I remember all the khutbas at that time was the imams kept stressing, because they said, okay, it's one thing. They said it's fine, if you want to petition the government or you want to complain about certain things, that's fine. But they said, you got to remember that the ni'mah of this belad is istiqrar.
Subhanallah,
right?
that's true.
We have stability, right? And again, it's been the same royal family for 330 something years.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
And I remember that very, very clearly, because where I was teaching English was the American Language Center in Fez, which also houses Elif, which is the Arabic language institute of Fez. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I remember that, but I never been there.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very famous place. That's where I originally studied Arabic, because it's the same building, and so they would receive, for example, like every year, like a group from Leeds University would come by, and then they would receive I'm sure the camera's right, and then they also receive like study groups from different American universities, like from Dartmouth and from Florida and these kind of places. And I remember like that year, like that spring 2011, there was like hundreds of people from the U.S.
Crazy, subhanAllah.
Because they couldn't go to Egypt, they couldn't go to Syria, they couldn't go to. So it was just packed.
Furthermore, from a spiritual perspective, I'll tell you how else you'll get better in Arabic in Morocco is that if you go after every Maghrib and recite the Hizb with the group, and then after every Isha or before Isha, I don't know what it is, different areas, they have Dalail al-Khairat readings. Just from the devotional readings, your eyes get so used to seeing words and seeing verbs and seeing nouns and seeing patterns, right? And a lot of people, just from devotional recitation, they get good at Arabic. Because when your eye gets so used to the words, that stops being an obstacle. Now finding the meaning is actually pretty easy. Using a dictionary is pretty easy because my eye knows where the ta and a fa is, and it's all. I'll tell you why that's important. Is because Arabic is harder regarding the letters than anything else, because the difference between three letters could just be little dots. In English, every single letter is completely a separate shape. The P and the B is pretty close. That's it, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
That's it. The P and the B. Yeah, like in the sense that it's one loop versus two loops. Capital B and capital P is one loop versus two loops. But other than that, like it's very hard to confuse letters. Just the B and the D lowercase, the line on the opposite side of the circle. But that's it. The letters have nothing to do with it. S and T and R, the R and the Z have nothing to do with each other, right? In the shape. But Arabic is not.
I'm just saying that there's a theory. I don't know if this applies to other languages or where it only applies to European languages, but it's true that says that in English, if as long as the first letter is there and the last letter is there, you can jumble up everything in the middle and still read it. Right? And it's true. You can see you can actually read like a poster, and everything makes sense. As long as the first letter is there, the second and the last letter is there where it's supposed to be, everything else is fine.
SubhanAllah.
Everything else can be in whatever order imaginable, but I don't think that would work in Arabic. I think Arabic would just
too many words. It
would totally mess you up.
Arabic. The beauty of Arabic, though, is that there's no concept of mixing two languages, whereas we do have that in English. Like the O sound in English is famously, it's 10 different ways. Good, food, right? Cool. They're all different. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of examples of that in English because English is Germanic plus Latin mixed.
Yeah, it's technically Germanic language, but it has Latin roots. So
all right, folks. Go ahead, sign up for Shaykh Mahdi's class. Shaykh Mahdi comes on regularly, maybe once a month or so, talk about the latest in Arabic, and we are seriously dedicated to continue pushing and developing. And I think we're really on the cusp of start thinking of our first physical intensive. All right, Safina Saadi sponsored Arabic intensive in on site, not online. Okay. On site Arabic intensive that'll be not just pure academics, but it'll be other things too. And we already have an Arabic intensive here in New Jersey, but we need one also for Shaykh Mahdi. So maybe we do one in England at some point. So that you don't have to travel too much. That would be great. So let's. I
definitely know some venues. So
yeah. If you could actually put it together from your side, in terms of if you an assistant can find venues, find a place, like where would students stay, right? All that stuff. We're totally on board with pushing it and making sure it happens.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Jazakallah khairan. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. All right. Take care. Wa alaikum assalam. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was our segment with Shaykh Mahdi. Again, newabooks.com. It's there in the chat on YouTube. If you're on Instagram and you want to see these links, come on to YouTube, Safina Sadi's channel. And let's now move to the Q&A session, our final segment of the day. All right, talking about Imam al-Razi. What did he say about the intellect? Well, one thing I could tell you right away is that any narration that presents a contradiction within itself or with a mutawatir sourse will be mu'awwal. Simple as that. I mean, that's, well known. And it's in Morocco Saud as well. All right. It's in Morocco Saud as well. That any text in our tradition. And why is it mu'awwal? What is the value of Arabic words having multiple meanings if we never use them? Right? Like, why do they have multiple meanings in the first place? So if the top meaning offers a contradiction of some sort, it has to have another meaning. Right? And the meaning cannot come from our heads. And the meaning and the ta'weed cannot come because we can't imagine it. Right? Oh, I can't imagine a horse that flies, so therefore we must make ta'weed. No. You're not imagining it doesn't mean it's illogical. You have to understand this very basic point. Logic refers to maqul, la yuqal refers to internal contradictions. Okay, that's where the ta'weed comes, or contradiction with a higher source. That's where the ta'weed comes from. And the content of the ta'weed is the Arabic language, not whatever word we want to make up that suits our sensibilities. And the one who does it is a mutqin, mutakallim, or someone who is extremely trusted and knowledgeable in the Arabic language. Simple as that. Tony Fam says, is the reason for changing positions after Salah so that a different piece of the earth can testify that you made dhikr on Yawm al-Qiyamah? Yes, that's oftentimes one of them. For sure. Well, that's a fact. Either way, whether it's a narration or not, we know that the earth does testify. Whether it's a narration for prayer or not, the earth does testify. So that is a fact that the earth will testify. But there isn't necessarily I personally haven't seen, and I've asked many shuyukh for a specific nas saying to do that. Right? It's not saying that it's wrong to do that, but it's just one of those things that we all do without necessarily seeing it. It's not clear in the books. Otherwise we'd have seen it by now, like a fadila. It would be in the fada'il as-salah, is to move from a different location, right? Also, keep in mind that one person saying that they haven't seen it doesn't mean anything, right? But I'm pretty sure after all these years, if it was a clear fadila of salah, it would have been in one of the books that we read in fiqh. Okay. All right, let's go to another one here. Come to Detroit and visit Dar al-Rahma. Inshallah, I will do that. Detroit's not far at all. Okay. In al-Ashmawiyya, in Maliki fiqh, making dua after takbirat al-ihram is makruh. That includes dua al-istiftah. But it does not include the dua after tashahud. The dua after tashahud is a fadila to do. But the dua al-istiftah in the obligatory prayer is makruh. So how did the Prophet do it and you're saying makruh? The Prophet could have done it in the nafilah, right? So that's if I'm not mistaken, it's Abu Hurairah who heard it, who narrates it, if I'm not mistaken. So perhaps he was watching the Prophet pray nafilah and heard him say that. So we say that it's in the nafilah, not in the fadila. Is wanting a McLaren against tasawwuf if it's not really in the heart? What is tasawwuf? First of all, one of the best definitions is al-iqbal ala Allah, sidq al-tawajjuhi ila Allah, seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you seek Allah ta'ala, is implied in there is a starting point. What starting point are you at? You could be someone who has just explicated himself or extricated himself from a dozen unlawful relationships in business and with women, and went and spent hours a day reviewing how much zakah you owed in the past. That person who's at that kind of lifestyle, he's drawn near to Allah. And that person wants to get himself a McLaren. He's already a multimillionaire. Where's the effect here? There's no effect. Look at where he's coming from. So you see the relativity here? All right? You see the relativity here? It's not even far off that a person loves the things of the dunya, but he loves Allah as well. The question is, does he do forbidden things for the sake of that dunya? It's also not far off that a person, he loves nafila too. He loves dhikr, but zuhud, living the simple life, is not something he's been blessed with. You know who else was not a zahid? I'm not going to say like McLaren level, but Imam Malik himself used to wear nice clothes. I have the letter here, actually. It's a beautiful letter. A man wrote to Malik, one of the zuhad. He said, Malik, Allah has given you so many virtues. He's given you knowledge. He's given you the respect of the people. He's given you hadith. He's given you so many things. And yet we see you wearing the clothes of the princes. Very nice clothes. So we advise you to take on zuhud. What did Malik write back? He didn't write back a harsh letter. He wrote back, thank you for your nasiha, and know that Allah disperses the rain wherever he wishes. And a man may be given one virtue, but not another. So that was the great Imam Malik on the nice clothes that he was. And by the way, that was at the later in life. In the beginning, he was very poor. Even was said that he sold a panel from the roof of his house to buy books, right? So he could study. So that's an example. Here's Queen Noor says, does terra nullis and ihya al-ard al-mawat apply in any way to the Zionists in Palestine? First of all, we have to talk about ihya al-ard al-mawat, and there's a lot of conditions that have to do with that. Okay. What the questioner is saying is, ihya al-ard al-mawat is to revive earth, land that's been abandoned. The Nakba of 1948. Hey, Omar, do you have that? Let's play that Instagram video. A lot of the land of Palestine that is now Israel wasn't merely abandoned land, right? Speaking of Palestine, let's go to this. Let's watch this. We're gonna watch Omar's gonna burn it up. We'll take other questions until he does that. But one of our community members, many people don't know this about him, but he was featured now on AJ Plus. Not community members, community leaders. He's now 92 years old. May Allah bless him. And AJ Plus has recently featured him. So let's take a look at this. All right, give him a second. I'll take another question. Okay. Someone said this orange shawl is called the Chishtiya because Mu'aynuddin Chishti used to wear that. MashaAllah. What's the Maliki saying on staying in Muzdalifah during Hajj? A sitting is enough. Very small amount of time. Enough that you just sat, rested, less than tashahud. And you got up. That's it. You don't have to stay half the night. You don't have to stay the full night. Okay. This is one of the great wisdoms of that is the traffic eases up because of that different ruling. Imagine if everyone had to stay till Fajr and then travel. It would be very difficult. Okay. All right, let's take a look at this.
I was sleeping about 4:30 in the morning. My grandmother came and she woke me up. She says, Dawood, get up. They are shooting. So right away, I opened the big window facing the town and I saw that the village was all ablaze. We were attacked by the Zionists. for 3 sides, east side, north, and south. But thanks God, we managed to go to the west side. Uncle Rodwan, they came and he was sleeping in the bed. They took him out from there, put him on the wall, and they shot 8 bullets on his forehead. And he went to the floor, going around, like a chicken without a head. When she held my brother Omar, she wanted to take him back with her. The guard told her, no, we have orders. Nobody can take anybody out. So either you put him down or I will shoot you. So my mother at that time, she went back very sad for not being able to take her child. So my mother, she had all her life and saying, why didn't I take my son with me and let him shoot me? This was a calculated massacre planned by the head of the groups. They want to scare the people so that they would leave their homes, and that's it worked out. Imam Malik said himself that if it wasn't for the massacre of Deir Yassin, there would not be Israel today. You see those children killed in Gaza and West Bank. You remember Deir Yassin massacre, and you say, oh my goodness, history repeating itself. So these people here, actually, they don't have any mercy in their hearts. We will never surrender because we believe we are fighting to get our land back. We rather die, all of us fighting, but we know that in the end, God will give us victory, inshallah.
Great evil of today, state of Israel, subhanAllah. That's the evil of today. It was the Nazis last century. It's them this time around. Right. And they did it in the same decade in which they were massacred, meaning their reaction to the massacre, to the Holocaust, it was nothing other than penting it up inside and doing it to other people. That's it. So when you come from the north, south, and the east, clearly what are you doing? You're pushing them to the west. Like that's what they wanted, right? SubhanAllah. All right, couple more questions that we'll take here. Were there any cases when the Prophet ﷺ had to prioritize something which required going against the imperative of Islam? There was an instance in the Battle of the Khandaq in which the prayer time of Asr passed. And Umar ibn Khattab said, Allah curse these enemies, they caused us, because they're like receiving arrows, caused me to miss Asr. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I too have to pray Asr. Right? So that's an example of a time in which the battle, busied the companions from the prayer, and they had no choice but to pray outside the time that they had usually would pray. All right, are we allowed to watch the MMA because of the aura? I mean, it's not, and punching to the face. Yeah, those things are haram. There's no, way around that. Punch in the face, uncovering your aura. Those things are haram. There's no way around that. Plus, even not the punch in the face, like the choking, for example, right? The chokehold. Those things are forbidden for us to do. After Ramadan, do women have to make qada for lost days due to the monthly period before fasting the 6 white days? And the answer is yes. You always prioritize the obligation over the sunan. And the 6 white days in the Maliki school are any time in the year, not limited to Shawwal. Is there any opportunity to justify your deed on Yawm al-Qiyamah? People will be taken to court on the Day of Judgment, and they will be asked to explain themselves, but they can only say the truth. There will not be anyone lying. Right? The lying cannot happen in the afterlife. When are you guys coming to Maryland? We're coming soon, inshallah. I keep saying soon, but we haven't figured out when, but we're gonna, inshallah. All right. It's better to feed a hungry, unwell person first, then pray, or pray first? Well, it depends. If there is time, then the prayer, then feeding. If it's Maghrib, then Maghrib first. Like Maghrib is the one prayer that you would not delay. And provided in the other 4 prayers that you have time to pray. You take care of that sick person, give them their meal, and you can pray. There's no sin upon you. The Risala of Said Nursi, do you recommend it? Yeah, I totally recommend that. Is finance a good field? I mean, it's a good knowledge, but in general, but you'd have to find a job that's lawful. And there is now, by the way, Stern Salam Bank for businesses that want to take loans. And they basically pin the loan, they structure the loan on something that you already own, whether it's their incoming receipts, the invoices, or a property or equipment. And then they'll buy that from you. So you get the cash right away in flush. And then you buy it back from them over time. And that's how they profit. So it's pinned. Their home base is in Minnesota, but they also have it here too. Right? I mean, the guy who works from here, he works from home, essentially. All right, let's see what else we got here.
Someone's asking, are we planning on going to Morocco on a group trip anytime soon?
It's not on the schedule, unfortunately. I mean, it's in our mental schedule, like desire, sphere of desire, but not yet the sphere of concern or immediate plan. If you take an oath and you can't keep it, how do you make up for it? Either you feed 10 poor Muslims 1 mudd of food, or you clothe them, or you fast 3 days. And you can do all that before you actually break the oath. You have the intent to break the oath, but you haven't broken it yet, but you intend to break it, so that you could do those things beforehand. Is watching anime discouraged in Maliki fiqh? It is a lahu, and so therefore al-yasir jaiz. A little bit of, is it acceptable? Are there any Hanafi streamers you all suggest? Who's out there streaming in Hanafi?
What about streams? Streams is tough. Who really streams? I don't know.
Good question.
I mean, videos, yeah, there's videos.
When you say the people of Medina, who do you mean? The scholars, yes, as Nafis says here. It's the scholars of Medina, of the first 3 generations. Not after that, and not the common person. Can you comment on Malik's approach towards Qiyas? We'll read that. We can read that section. Why not? Okay, it's down. It's here. But maybe we're running late on time. So, yeah, we'll read that section on Malik and Qiyas. We'll read that. Okay. Let's close off with something that's pretty funny here. Can one make, firstly, my Rahab's question, can one make the intention to fast qada while asking for the blessing of fasting on Monday? If you fast qada on Monday, yes, you get the blessing of having fasted on the day the Prophet was born. It's like a separate thing. You are making the intention of fasting the fard, and of course fasting on Monday is blessed in general, because the Prophet ﷺ said, I was born on that day. We're going to close off with something pretty funny here.
Tight for time, so I probably can't do my Islamic bit. Well, obviously, I'm not going to be telling the same jokes about Muhammad. I'd feel very comfortable telling about Jesus Christ, and that's because, fun fact, I'm not a fucking idiot.
Oh, sorry about that. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize you had that here. Sorry about that.
And you're sat there thinking, well, that's not fair. He make jokes about Christians all day long, but he won't make the same sort of jokes about Muslims. Well, then maybe, as a Christian, you should think about blowing something up. Hey?
Oh my gosh, this guy.
No one's scared of you. What are the Christians going to do? Forgive me.
Oh my gosh. How funny is that, man? It's what we said. You don't support it, but there's some crazy people who do crazy stuff. All right, we got to stop here. We'll see you all on Tuesday, inshallah. We will read tafsir. We will read more usul on qiyas. We will read stories of the awliya. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.